this kind of a shirt. This kind of a shirt is an undershirt to me. But, I was at the gym or whatever, and, I usually wear t-shirts, and thus all my band shirts or my cool shirts are t-shirts. I don't have a whole lot of long sleeve shirts that are something, right? So here I am in Adidas, which is only metal if you're new metal. Otherwise, Adidas is totally not metal. Anyway, it has to be new metal or rap metal. And rap metal, as well as new metal, is a mixed bag. And one way or the other, you're asking for something that's less heavy, because it can't go that fast. If it goes that fast, it all of a sudden, it's just like new metal has to be like slow. And hip hop metal, rap metal has to be slow because it has to be rapped over. And then new metal is just slow because I don't know what it's doing. I guess it's something for the vocals that it does what it does. But that's not important right now. So I've been working out this stuff in my head. I made a video talking about the Lady Babylon channel with Dr. Amon Hillman. I think that's the name, right? Because of his interesting take of Satan and Satanism, which I guess I'm not sure if some of it's like a troll, but I have getting a better and better bead on this on the guy, because a lot of stuff that helps me understand him is not from his own channel. His own channel is he's got his lesson plan thing, and then it's just like it takes a while for him to kind of get out what's going on underneath with his machinations of why his presentation is the way that it is, and the audience that he's cultivating. Right, he's not just cultivating anything. It's just like he doesn't like a lot of people. He doesn't really like red-pilled people, right? He's very concerned about a reprise of National Socialism in coming out of the right wing, and I think that I think the media's got him a little confused, but not wrong at the same time, because the evidence of it is there. It's part of why I never got quite into a thing or two. I was in a very different kind of world, and because my world was already wrapped up in the esoteric, it's not like I was getting anything deep like what Dr. Hillman does. It's not like I was getting anything deep out of liberal professors making YouTube content. It's just like, if I'm lucky, I'm getting something decent about like ancient Rome or something like that, but doesn't get into breaking with a whole bunch of stuff that they don't want you to know that they don't want you to know, right? There's the stuff that that they don't want you to know. And then there's the stuff that you don't know that they don't want you to know. It's like the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. Oh my God. Except when I say it, it makes sense. When Donald Rumsfeld says it, it's because he's a liar. I've been distancing myself from all sorts of shit. Right? All sorts of shit. Because, honestly, the social cost is not worth it all, right? I have my internal world. I have everything within that I can put without, that suits me. And I'm learning to live alone like that, in the sense that I'm alone but not alone at all, because I'm still getting a fulfillment of human interaction, I have I have my actual friends who we actually have invested time towards each other, and some of it is very downtime-ish. I'm sitting in traffic right now, so I can go up and catch my friend, watch a movie, play some games, and not necessarily be building something for the great work. But the great work is still in the backdrop of my life. But right now, everything's very internal. I'm building a better vehicle for producing the great work. And if I die tomorrow, then the great work will be how far I have come, and that's okay. I'll have to because by the time I'm dead, I'll have to worry about what I am doing as a soul on the other side. Because I'm sure I will have let go of all the attachments. Because I think that's sometimes a nightmare when the kinds of nightmare that really got your heart racing because you feel like you're dying, or if you basically have gone through a simulated death in your dreams and then either woke up or had a reset cycle in the dream where you're dreaming in a loop, right? And dreaming in a loop is it sucks because the thing that when I have dreamt in a loop tells me, it's just like, here you are at the crux of something that you absolutely can't get past in your mind until you figure out how to do it differently. And it's like Groundhog Day in your dreams, right? A long time ago, I would drive myself off a cliff of lava. This didn't happen every night. I'm just saying, one night I had a long-ass dream about the reptilian invasion, and I was running from the reptilians, driving off in my car, and every time I would try to escape, I'd fall off the side of a cliff into a river of lava. I'd die and then pop up right back there again with all those fucking Naga-type looking motherfuckers with, like, super weapons. And then me booking it with a handful of unidentified friends. And us all driving off of a cliff into lava. And then after, I don't know, this must have happened 9 fucking times or something. I was in a high energy, adrenalistic state in the dream. I finally got across and made an escape, and it was a great payoff as I had this crazy UFO event in the sky that I saw, right? It's very interesting what trying to understand the conspiracy world does, right? I don't quite have dreams like that anymore. I still have dreams, though. I had a dream just last night. I don't remember a hell of a lot of details, but the thing I really wanted to share that I do remember was this one interesting part where I think, to my feelings, it was my right hand in the dream. And I remember I'm passing through a door, and I see this big, it's like this big, kind of like a green, like, bug. Kind of looked like a stink bug or something. It wasn't, like, super ugly, but it was just big. And it leaped onto my hand, and I think it bit into it, and that's it. It bit in, and it was holding on. It wouldn't let go. And it didn't hurt, but it was annoying, and I wanted to get rid of it. In the back of my mind, I was just like, all right, what's going on? Like, I'm under some sort of spirit attack, obviously. And I didn't get rid of it by the time I woke up. I don't know if that means that I've got some sort of etheric implant or something, but I feel great. I'm fine. You know, maybe it's nothing to be alarmed about. Maybe it's it was a helper spirit, and it was just like, okay, you're in a dream, and you need to know that this is happening, and you don't understand. It could be like that. I don't know. Could be a good thing. Could be a bad thing. I don't feel bad. You know, I do a serious amount of personal work, energetically, physically, and mentally, and everything else, and I'm pretty damn good at throwing shit off of me. And I've got no pains, no issues, nothing scaring me right now. Perfectly filled with love and support and ability. So no problems. I'm good, right? But it's a lot to think about. You know, it obviously it plays a tiny bit on little ticks of fears, right? Tick being very you know, being a very apropos word. A pun, very punny word for, you know, a tick being kind of like just like a reflex action that you got, and then a tick is also a bug, right? And I guess it reflexively bites on you, and then you're rolling the dice as to whether you end up getting Lyme disease, which may or may not have been made in a government lab by Nazis in Long Island. This is our fucking weird fucking underpinning esoteric fucking like history and rumors and everything else, and you know, and so this Dr. Hillman guy is, you know, he keeps, you know, he likes having those hard, credible source materials, and I guess he doesn't need peer review because he's trying to find peer review as he stands alone. I guess maybe trying to earn the academic acknowledgement in the argument, because I mean he hasn't done anything that has revoked his credentials as a person who knows his shit and can teach. It's just a question of where he can teach, and it seems like he must be doing his teaching independently on social media. So he's so I think that he's a classical liberal. That's what I think, because I think the classical liberalism falls in line with his Dionysian disposition. You know, I guess he's a pagan who's doing like the for real Bacchic stuff or whatever. And I'm just, you know, I wonder about a little bit of it, because I'm still trying to get to an understanding, like, because a central thesis for him is the whole condemnation of Jesus as being a pedophile trafficker and drug trafficker within, you know, these Bacchic rites, and I guess he's perverting them criminally because we're talking about being glad that the man was crucified. And I'm assuming that Dr. Hillman is right in that those texts are source, and that's what it said. And whether you like it or not, that's what we got, is a bunch of words on paper, and there's nothing special about the words on paper of what you call the Bible. The second you start thinking that's special, you become a bibliodolater, meaning that you worship a book. And the church, whether it's Catholic or Protestant of any sort, Presbyterians, if the book is your source, then you're worshiping the Bible, and you're worshiping the Bible from a place of absolute illiteracy. You had people that deliberately illiterated the Bible when they translated it, right? And I'm not sure if that goes for the Latin, because his focus has been on the Greek stuff, and that Greek stuff focus also means Old Testament stuff too, and it turns all that stuff on its head from what you think you know, right? And it's interesting, right? Like, I had to look at a whole lot of this, definitely conservative-leaning, esoterica to figure out a thing or two, right? And but I think he doesn't realize some of the nuance out there, so he doesn't know that there's someone like me, and that I don't know, he looks like he's got a lot of black and white going on about a couple of things, and I think that it's hard to walk the line, and so sometimes you take something that does have shades of gray and it just has to be black and white. And I think that that's a mistake that we all make, and that we have to hopefully be wise at the time that we have to make decisions and judgments over those things, right? And can one appreciate that their position is so complicated that someone is going to have 20 questions that are going to be very challenging questions, right? I've made several comments or said certain things in the live streams, for Lady Babylon, and I get the sense that I am probably concerning to them. They probably think that I am a right-wing troll because they've probably heard certain prerequisite kind of strange questions that they're not used to within their conversation about a thing or two, right? I mean, there's definitely a defense, a high-level defense of liberalism going on, and I've been too much of an against liberalism position for a long time because of the way things had changed in 2016, right? And part of the trick is not getting lost in all of that stuff, right? And that can be hard because you make new friends, right? Some of these, quote, Nazi types that Dr. Hillman is worried about, they're waiting there. They're waiting there for a liberal to say a harsh, foolish thing about a conservative's ignorance. And then they push the conservative outright away, condemning them on a certain level because you're trying to defend your trauma. Understandable. If we got pain, we haven't worked out, you're living in the moment, working with the circumstances, and you're proactive in the cultural, social conversation, which feeds our politics. Therefore, it's a lot of high passion because you're wondering about how that's going to impose and influence on the executors, right? When the politician makes an order, does the officer follow that order because of their allegiances, or do they remember their humanity and they allow it to break? Right? This is stuff that you see being represented in the Loki series. And you're very much looking at, because it's about fascism and shit, you're looking at, you got the time Nazis in the Loki series, and you've got Loki simultaneously working for them and against them at the same time, because his disposition and his position with the nature of the matter of fact of his cunning and intelligence. He actually sees things that other people can't see, and is things that other people don't understand. And therefore, it takes a long time for you to trust. But that's all supposed to be Odin. Odin is the trickster deity. You know, Loki is a Jotun. And you don't have to feel like shameful or guilt, like, just like, you know, like in all of reality, there isn't a circumstance to trust Loki. You are working on earning the trust of Odin, who is also a trickster, who will also play a trick on you. But he will actually play a trick on you to learn a lesson. There's not always a lesson involved with Loki. There often isn't, and if there is, it's the same lesson you get from any adversary that would want you dead. And that adversary is always like, see how I made you a better man, after they fucking ruined your life for like a year straight or something, and then they want you to thank them when you get stronger. That's a twisted disposition, right? And that's not even really kind of what Loki's doing anyway. Loki is just like, he's just setting up a trap. He won't help you get out of the trap. He's interested in seeing if you fall for the trap. And then he's interested in seeing how you get out of the trap. And that's all Loki's really fucking doing. And maybe there's a reward. Maybe there's a curse. The trap in and of itself is typically a curse. But with Odin, Odin is actually, you know, a teacher. He's dad. He's patriarch, and he has an invested interest in your well-being. Just as any good father ought to. And thus you get that kind of character. You get the older, experienced man, still very capable, and he is the one guiding you in your ability to be cunning and deadly, and to be in control of your emotions. This is why he is the frenzied one. He is for those who have frenzy within them, and he's trying to help you wrangle that in, which is part of the position of being the chief of the gods. In the summer seasons, Tyr sits in that chair, and Tyr has Fenrir by the leash, right? And then in winter, Fenrir's off the leash. Tyr is in a weakened disposition. Odin comes in as king, carries us through the winter. He is a winter god. Tyr and Odin, it's like Cherzavog and Berzabog. I think that's their names. The white god and the black god of Slavic mythos, right? They're brothers, and one is a summer god of life, and one is a winter god of death. And both of them have their, including the death god, have a certain manner in which they are trying to make things better by their example, by knowing them, right? Slavic deities are brutal, man. They're fucking brutal. They deal with a whole lot of cold, a whole lot of disease, so they got a whole lot of fucking folklore with deities that revolve around that shit. And then it's also a question of that folklore that we've heard of. how much of that is perverted by the Eastern Orthodox Church, which has its interesting place in this conversation. And so my point is that I almost wonder, like, does Dr. Hillman think that pagan equals liberal and that there weren't conservative pagans? Because it's pretty clear that there were conservative pagans too, right? And, you know, it's entirely possible that there was, certain wars where maybe it wasn't outright said, but maybe the big reason why we were comfortable going to war with each other is because you had a tribe of more conservative versus more liberal values. The Northman implies this with the manner in which things are different between an Aesir-dominated society, sky god worshippers, versus a Vanir-dominated society of earth god worshippers, right? You've got Amleth talking about wanting to destroy this god of erections, right? So imagine living your whole life thinking your neighbor's god was nothing more than this one thing you happen to see with their sacred rites, right? And you've only had exposure of it through one particular family and how they do it, that you've already got beef with, right? And then you survive or whatever, and now people down the line, they speak ill of you and your gods, and then that becomes an understanding in history, and because that's what was happening to Amleth anyway, right? It's just like he had to hide his name, not just in the slave trade. Like, people didn't know that he was the son of King Orvindal. He is understood as dead, and his father's name is sullied across the land, right? And so I think about that, right? It's it's just like, the responsibility of our speech is that we want to not cast a broad brush of blame about things, right? Because Dr. Hillman, I've seen him make these videos, and then, like one of the ones I saw recently, which is in like season 2 or something like that, I think I mentioned this in the last video when I talked about him, was that he point out, like, seeing a correlation between the mania of the Dionysian cult that became the Christians that he is very concerned about, and the posture with a Christian who was raising his hands up to God during the pseudo-Christian New Age, not very good pagan prayer that was happening, and he's very serious about this about that being like a real insurrection, right? Not understanding, like not even thinking to himself, patsy. Why does nobody like to think about the concept of the patsy? What happened to patsies? Did we forget that a patsy is a thing? Like, a guy named Patsy had this shit happen to him, and that's where the name comes from. And it was and we know that name because it was a big deal what he was a patsy about. Right? To be the blind subject of a setup. Usually designed to take the blame for a thing. While being under the pretenses that what you were doing was something else entirely. Because, like, guys like Jake Angeli, if anybody ever cared to listen to anything they say just to understand what their values are, right? Because, you're going straight to, oh, he must be criminal because he did a, he must have bad intentions because he did a criminal thing by behaving in an insurrectionist manner. And then you project your beliefs onto him, right? Like, you don't even know that, like, the man was, had a following, because he had a following, because he had things he had to say. People, like, it wasn't just, oh wow, look at the cool idiot with the horns on, let's march behind him. It's just like, no, he had like followers on like Rumble and shit, right? He was making content, he was talking about certain things, and people feeling the pressure of the times and wanting to preserve some aspect of their way of life, right? I mean, these Q-oriented people, they've got a whole lot of faults in their ignorances, but when it comes to what they typically, like, on the, like, ultimately baseline want, is maybe not exactly what liberalism wants, but it's nothing like that. Like, it's not just like everything that isn't liberal is off to the gallows for people that like sodomy. That's not what these guys are doing. Yeah, there's a few people out there that are going to be far more hardline. There always have been. It's literally nothing has changed. I mean, pretty much nothing has changed other than we stabbed ourselves in the foot over fear of the other. But we just did the damage to ourselves. Black people were worried about white people marching in the streets and destroying black neighborhoods out of fear for them and to intimidate them. And then in 2020, black liberals were doing that to black businesses that were also liberal. There's all liberal people doing those things to other liberal people because they were different kinds of liberal. So, dude, there's plenty of divide and plenty of things that bring those divides together and then split them apart, right? And we're going back to those divisions again, where everybody is part of small groups of understanding instead of large groups of understanding. And they may have a solidified voice that you can't quench or squash, excuse me, but also you'll notice that is not really growing exponentially. You can get a sense of it, right? We're living in a time where, if a platform is still using bots, you basically can tell what is a bot. With the very off natural behavior. Actual, like, living traffic when it comes to activity during live streams and premieres and such. Versus the authentic thing. And then you'll also realize that, like, some of those people are there because they're not hardliners about one thing or the other. And it's just like, this Nazi, he's wrong about like 90% of everything. I kind of think he's a joke, but he's got this one valid point, and I kind of like this in that video. And then that happens, right? And, and guess what? When someone's wrong, someone's wrong. If you're working really hard to get it right, then the one who is wrong, you're going to be able to beat, because you're already in that arena of knowledge with them. You've really got nothing to worry about because your truth will overcome, right? It's a question of, are you finding the truth you need to protect your ideals, right? Because, there's ideals going on here with Lady Babylon, right? There's a defense of the trans and the defense of the gay and the bi. I guess there is not the defense of pedophilia, although I'm still trying to figure out what they're talking about, like, as far as their feelings are concerned when they hear about, like, oh, you see, and she was like 12 years old. It's like, and so everybody's like, yeah, we noticed that. It seems to be always the 12-ish age that pops up in the context of these scriptures. And our society has been kind of against that, really looked at it in a certain taboo fashion, right? I mean, like before there was drag queen story out, the big outrage as far as exposing children to adult material in the world was those oh my god, those beauty pageants for little girls, right? And I'm sitting there and everybody is just, I'm looking at all these people are completely ignoring how disturbing this is. And I'm sorry, that is fucking disturbing. I think that it's child abuse. I mean, like, it's just like, yeah, you're growing up at the age of 12, but you're not even close to there yet. I think it's just too young. I think people seem to turn out pretty good if things iron themselves out by their 20s or whatever. And like, I think that shouldn't be ignored. I think it's healthy when you're looking at a cult or a culture that is doing such a thing, and somebody wants to speak up and say, hey, I think you might be doing some harm by conducting these performances, doing this behavior, or having these people involved with it, these elements involved with it, or whatever. Look, man, I really think you need to change, because you're doing a hell of a lot of damage, and quite frankly, I got a right to be a bit offended by what I'm being subject to, because you want to put it out there in front of me, right? This isn't a private event thing. This is like public, like you want this, you published this on your YouTube channel, right? Like, like we're talking about, like, my right to say something comes from you choosing to exercise your right to show it to me, and to open yourselves up to my opinion, to my observations, to my judgments as a rational person. And then we have to talk about why I might be wrong in thinking that I need to insert a moral principle right here, right? Because of course, if you allow my moral principle to stand and you actually have a thing for this, you are allowing yourself to be subject to shame because of what I am saying is wrong, and what deep down inside you don't like being told is wrong. You don't like this invocation of guilt that I'm, doing, right? And then this triggers a person into thinking that you're trying to be a right-wing extremist, when ultimately all you're trying to say is, what you were like and what many people were like at that age, and all the context relevant to someone at that age. We were all 12 years old once, if we are older than 12 now. plain and simple. So any one of us can claim, well, listen, I was a 12-year-old. This is where my free will was at, my consciousness, my circumstances, my feelings about my body and God and everything else at 12 years old. This is why I know that if I was in that environment, I think it would be a life-changing experience that I don't think would be good for me. To bother the machinations of my mind and get conflated and confused with all my other childlike interests. And then, of course, we are talking about there being no sense of initiation, right? Of course, the initiation can say a whole lot of things about a whole lot of things. Because my interest is in knowing is, does someone like Dr. Hillman have the ability to have a conversation with anybody who is perhaps like me, who is going to be of a dissenting opinion and can handle a time of challenging questions, which may not even be a challenge, right? I think that there's a clarity he doesn't know that he needs to bring for some of us, because I think that more can come across. Because when I hear Dr. Hillman with Gnostic Informant, when he's doing his appearances with Gnostic Informant, I understand that side better, which helps me understand the subtext of what he's talking about in his classroom there, right? You know, his channel is obviously run like a classroom. I understand this format from other gurus and whatnot that I've listened to and interacted with. And I gotta admit, I want to poke the bear. I want to poke the bear. I want to see what happens, right? Will he go and make a serpent strike? You know, like, will he retaliate with venomous action and words? You know? Or will he find value in my question? Will he see what I'm looking for? Is there room for that? Does he care about the conservative position? Right? I'm just asking, does he care about the conservative position? Because I have to imagine that he is somewhat of a reasonable person. He's just been through a lot because he's been rejected by a whole lot of people. Sounds like he's been rejected by a whole lot of people misrepresenting something that still he hasn't caught yet himself personally. So at any rate, I'm near my exit. I'm going to get going. I appreciate all your time. Let's try to get around to another Heidegger read soon.